For some people, a watch is simply a way to tell time. For collectors, it can be something much more. A great watch can represent history, engineering, craftsmanship, status, and sometimes even a personal achievement. The most desirable watches in the world are not always the biggest or most expensive. Today, we're looking at 10 watches that countless collectors dream of owning. 10. Rolex Submariner. Few watches are as recognizable as the Rolex Submariner. Introduced in the 1950s, the Submariner helped define the modern luxury dive watch. Its combination of water resistance, rotating bezel, highly legible dial, and rugged construction made it an important tool for divers. But over the decades, it became much more than a professional instrument. The Submariner became one of Rolex's most recognizable designs. Collectors are attracted to the watch because it manages to combine practicality with prestige. It can be worn with casual clothing, a business suit, or almost anything in between. Different generations have developed their own following, particularly vintage references. Older examples can command significant prices depending on condition, rarity, originality, and provenance. The Submariner isn't necessarily the rarest watch on this list. That's precisely what makes it interesting. It is one of the watches that helped create the modern luxury watch culture in the first place. 9. Omega Speedmaster Professional. The Omega Speedmaster has something that very few watches can claim. It went to the moon. The Speedmaster was selected by NASA for space missions after undergoing a series of demanding tests. It became closely associated with the Apollo missions and the astronauts who wore it. That history transformed an already respected chronograph into one of the most famous watches ever produced. Collectors particularly value the classic professional model because its basic appearance has remained remarkably consistent over generations. The black dial, 3 subdials, tachymeter bezel, and traditional mechanical movement create a design that feels unmistakably connected to the original era of space exploration. For collectors, owning a Speedmaster isn't just about owning an attractive chronograph. It is about owning a small piece of the history of human exploration. 8. Audemars Piguet Royal Oak. When the Royal Oak appeared in 1972, it looked radically different from traditional luxury watches. Designed by Gerald Genta, the watch introduced a bold octagonal case, exposed screws, an integrated bracelet, and a distinctive textured dial. At a time when luxury watches were generally associated with precious metals and conservative designs, the Royal Oak took a different approach. Its combination of steel construction and luxury finishing helped establish an entirely new category: the high-end sports watch. Today, the Royal Oak is one of Audemars Piguet's defining creations. Collectors are drawn to its instantly recognizable shape and its importance in watchmaking history. Different sizes, materials, complications, and dial variations have appeared throughout the model's history, giving collectors an enormous range of versions to pursue. For many enthusiasts, getting a Royal Oak is considered a major milestone. 7. Patek Philippe Nautilus. Another Gerald Genta design sits high on the wish lists of collectors: the Patek Philippe Nautilus. Introduced in 1976, the Nautilus combined a sporty appearance with the refinement expected from Patek Philippe. Its distinctive case shape, horizontal dial pattern, and integrated bracelet created a design that was completely different from the company's traditional dress watches. Over time, the Nautilus became one of the most recognizable luxury sports watches in existence. Certain discontinued references became especially desirable among collectors, while complicated versions pushed the concept even further. Part of the appeal is scarcity. Patek Philippe produces far fewer watches than mass-market manufacturers, and demand for some models has remained extremely strong. For collectors, a Nautilus represents an unusual combination: the casual personality of a sports watch with the prestige and craftsmanship of one of Switzerland's most respected watchmakers. 6. Rolex Daytona. The Rolex Cosmograph Daytona has become almost synonymous with luxury chronographs. Originally created with motorsport in mind, the Daytona features a chronograph layout designed around timing, speed, and performance. Its connection to racing is an important part of its identity, but the watch became even more famous through celebrity associations, particularly its connection with actor and racing enthusiast Paul Newman. Vintage Daytona references associated with Newman have become legendary in the auction world, but even modern Daytonas are highly sought after. collectors appreciate the model's balanced dial, chronograph functionality, recognizable case, and strong historical identity. The Daytona is also a good example of how a professional tool can eventually become a luxury icon. What began as a motorsport-inspired chronograph evolved into one of the most desirable watches in the world. 5. A. Lange & Söhne. Lange. When moving away from Switzerland, we find a watchmaker with a very different design philosophy. A. Lange & Söhne, based in Germany, is famous for exceptional finishing and distinctive mechanical movements. The Lange one is perhaps its most recognizable creation. Instead of placing everything symmetrically on the dial, the Lange one uses an unusual arrangement. The hours and minutes occupy one section, the small seconds sit elsewhere, and a large date display completes the design. Despite looking unconventional, the layout feels remarkably balanced. Turn the watch over, and another reason collectors admire it becomes obvious. The movement is beautifully finished, with details such as hand decoration, polished surfaces, and the German three-quarter plate characteristic of Lange's designs. For collectors who appreciate mechanical craftsmanship as much as brand recognition, the Lange one is an extraordinary choice. 4. Patek Philippe Perpetual Calendar Chronograph. Some watches become famous because of their appearance, others because of what their movements can do. The Patek Philippe Perpetual Calendar Chronograph belongs firmly in the second category. It combines two highly complicated functions. A chronograph can measure elapsed time, while a perpetual calendar tracks information such as the date, day, month, and leap years with minimal adjustment under normal conditions. Combining these systems inside a relatively compact mechanical watch requires enormous expertise. Patek Philippe has produced legendary examples of this combination throughout its history. Vintage references are particularly important to collectors because of their rarity and historical significance. These watches represent traditional high watchmaking at its most sophisticated. They are not designed simply to impress someone from across a room. Much of their beauty is hidden inside the movement, where hundreds of components work together to perform incredibly complex tasks. 3. Vacheron Constantin Overseas. Vacheron Constantin is one of Switzerland's oldest continuously operating watch manufacturers, and its history stretches back to the 18th century. The Overseas represents the brand's modern interpretation of the luxury sports watch. It combines a recognizable case design with high-end finishing and mechanical movements. One of its distinctive features is its bracelet and strap system, which allows owners to change the appearance of the watch without requiring complicated tools. For collectors, the Overseas offers something slightly different from the Royal Oak or Nautilus. It carries the heritage of one of the oldest names in watchmaking, while maintaining a contemporary sports watch personality. The combination of history, craftsmanship, versatility, and exclusivity makes it a watch many serious collectors would happily add to their collection. 2. Richard Mille RM011. Then there is Richard Mille. The brand took luxury watchmaking in a completely different direction. Instead of trying to imitate traditional watch designs, Richard Mille embraced futuristic materials, unusual shapes, skeletonized movements, and extremely technical construction. The RM011 became one of the company's most recognizable models. Its large tonneau-shaped case and open mechanical movement immediately distinguish it from conventional luxury watches. Richard Mille watches are also famous for their use of advanced materials, including titanium and carbon-based composites. The engineering philosophy is closer to high-performance motorsport than traditional dress watch design. That extreme approach comes with extreme prices, making Richard Mille watches inaccessible to most buyers. But that's part of their appeal. For collectors who want something instantly recognizable and technologically unconventional, an RM011 represents one of the ultimate status pieces. 1. Patek Philippe Grand Complications. At the top of the list, we arrive at one of the ultimate expressions of traditional watchmaking, Patek Philippe's Grand Complications. Rather than being a single watch, Grand Complications represent some of the most sophisticated creations in the company's catalog. These watches can combine multiple complicated mechanisms, potentially including perpetual calendars, split-seconds chronographs, minute repeaters, astronomical indications, and other advanced functions. The challenge isn't simply adding complications. Each mechanism has to work reliably inside an incredibly small mechanical system. The finishing must also meet the extraordinary standards associated with Patek Philippe. Some pieces are produced in extremely limited quantities, and certain watches can take years of development and manufacturing expertise. For collectors, these watches represent the upper level of traditional mechanical watchmaking. They are expensive, difficult to obtain, and often extremely complicated. But that's exactly why they occupy such a special position. And that's our list of 10 watches every collector dreams of owning. Which one would you choose for your collection? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more videos.